Welcome to the final Frontstretch.com post-race conversation of 2023. Coming to you from Phoenix Raceway. The 36th and final Cup race of 2023 is over, and we have a champion, guys. It is Ryan Blaney out of the Championship 4, winning his first title. It's the third driver under 30 to win a title in the last 4 years. Certainly a very deserving champion and one of the closest and most competitive Championship 4 races I think that we've seen over the 10 years of the elimination style format. Guys, I just wanted to get your initial impressions of what you saw. Mike Massie, how do you feel like Ryan Blaney was able to come through and get the job done? And, how do you think he'll be as the sports champion?
I think it was a phenomenal performance by Blaney. He was aggressive. He went up there and he took it against two phenomenal drivers, Kyle Larson, who people say is a generational talent, and William Byron, who is probably the best driver in the season, winning 6 races. Blaney did it, and not to mention, he wanted to win the race. He went toe-to-toe with Ross Chastain when maybe he didn't really need to, and it got aggressive, but he hung in there. Obviously, Ross won the race, but Blaney comes away with the title, and I think he'll be a good champion because he's got like that it factor, like Jeff Gordon, where people are just drawn to him. I don't know if it's like the charisma or like the good looks or what it is about Blaney, but I think he'll be a great champion for the sport, one that can transcend NASCAR and won't be dull like maybe some of the other champions we've had have been.
Stephen, one of the big things I thought Blaney said in his post-race presser was about investing in the sport. And he's like, I'm not just a champion. I'm someone that, as the champion, needs to invest in the growth of the sport. I want to come up with creative ways to bring us to new fans. He understands the importance of being champion, that it's not just a big trophy and what he needs to do off the racetrack. But, Stephen, not only do I want to get your initial impressions, let's talk about Ford for a minute. Entering these playoffs, we didn't think Ford was going to do much at all. They had a down year, not just in Cup, but across all 3 series. And when you know it, they do a whole weekend sweep. They win the Truck Championship with Ben Rhodes. They win the Xfinity Championship with Cole Custer, and now Blaney, who was the one Ford to make the Final 4 in Cup, ends up the champion. What do you think?
I mean, for all we've heard about how the Ford Mustang in the next-gen car wasn't particularly good, it was slower than their counterparts. It's somewhat ironic that they ended up going 2 for 2 with this car, which will have a new nose, a new design for next year. But with Blaney, he hasn't won at Phoenix and Cup, but he's been great there. This was his third second-place finish in a row. He was right there behind Byron in the spring. He was right there behind Logano when he won the title last year. And he battled. He went toe-to-toe with Ross and Truex at the front for a while. But that final restart, all he needed to do was get around Larson. It took a little while, but he did that. He let Ross go in front of him, and he just, kept his line, kept logging the laps, and he, cruised to a second-place finish, but his first-ever title. And I agree with you. I agree with what both of you said. I think he has that it factor. I think he knows what it means to be a champion, and I think, especially with his persona, I think he's someone that NASCAR can absolutely market and bring to a larger fan base, as as he alluded to as well. So I think there's going to be a lot of good things for NASCAR going on heading into 2024.
Well, let's stick with you, Stephen, because you mentioned the battle at the front of the field between Blaney and Ross Chastain. At one point, Blaney hit the back of the one car I don't think we've ever seen in 10 years. A non-playoff driver race the championship drivers at the front of the field that hard. It's the first time since 2013 and the first time in the elimination style format, a non-championship driver has won in Chastain. And, I wanted to see what you thought about the racing. Was it fair or foul? Both drivers said after the race, Chastain was like, you know what? Ryan Blaney's mad at me, and I don't care. And I didn't care then when I was racing him, and I don't care now. But I wasn't going to wreck him, and I was being really careful, and Blaney's still mad. In the championship presser, when you should be so happy, he basically was like, you're damn right, I fucking ran into him, and he blocks 3 lanes going into the corner. I don't understand, and was still pretty upset. So what's your take on the racing that we saw?
I think it was fair, and I also think that because of what Ross said in his presser, he said I wasn't going to bump him, I wasn't going to put him into the wall, I wasn't going to spin him, I wasn't going to make contact with him. All I was going to do is use the clean air, try and block him, and try and run my race and keep him behind me. And that's exactly what he did, except for the part where Blaney got in the back of him. The two of them never made contact. Ross kept his place up front, and his hard work and trying to keep that lead paid off when he managed to get to the lead in the final restarts and pulled away. And obviously with Ross, it had been a feast or famine kind of season since he won at Nashville in June, and I think he showed up in a big way. Not only with how much he dominated, but also given the guy that was involved in controversy almost every other week. I think I was very impressed with how he raced. He kept it clean. He may have blocked, but he kept it clean, and he dominated. I think that's a preview for the Ross that we may see next year.
Only one lap led in the first 9 races of the playoffs. Today, he led 157. That's the most laps in a race he's led in his Cup career. Now, that wasn't the only big storyline aside from the Championship 4. Like every year, we see drivers change rides at the end of this season, moving on to 2024, and drivers leave the sport. We saw Kevin Harvick finally hang it up in the #Forever movement, nearing its end, completing its end with the 7th place finish at Phoenix. Massie, what were your impressions on the day for Harvick? Early on, it looked like he may even have the car to beat, but they didn't really keep up with the track and the adjustments as the race went on. You were there to talk to him after the race. What did you see? And what are you taking away from his career and what he meant to the sport?
So Harvick, obviously, that you couldn't have a better setting for his final race to be at. He's the greatest driver to ever drive Phoenix. 9 wins here, more than anybody. And it's just fitting that it's awesome to see he had that one great final moment. Like Jeff Gordon got it in Martinsville. Tony Stewart got it at Sonoma. So this was kind of Harvick's. He didn't get the win, but he seemed really content. And it seemed like he was just happy to end his career on that note. He's done something that very few drivers can say they've done, and that's end their career while they're still competitive. We saw like Rusty Wallace do it, Gordon, as I mentioned, but most of them just kind of trail off, maybe end up in some bad rides. He didn't want to do that. He ended things on his terms, and you got to respect that. But, yeah, he took the lead from Byron early on, and it looked like he was just going to pull away from the field. But as the sun set, he said the handling, he got a little too tight, and then on one of the pit stops late, they lost several spots. So I wasn't listening to the radio, so I don't know if we got one final Kevin Harvick meltdown on the crew or not. But in my mind, we got a final one on that. But still, great career for Kevin Harvick. He's one of the last superstars of the sport. I say Ryan Blaney can be a superstar, but he's not there yet. Kevin Harvick, those guys from the 2000s, they were superstars at the height of the sport's popularity. He's a guy that stepped in for after Dale Earnhardt passed, and he has done nothing but achieve greatness since then. Talk about pressure, stepping in that role, and everything since then's been a breeze from that situation.
Oh, absolutely. And when you look at Harvick's career, what he was able to achieve with not just one, but 2 organizations, first year at Stewart-Haas Racing, he goes out and wins the title. I think for Kevin, throughout his career, love him or hate him, he held everybody accountable. I mentioned this in our little book that we, as members of the media, gave Kevin on the Saturday of his retirement weekend. And I think he had a leadership style that was not always like pleasant to witness, but it got the job done. And he was tough on people, and he got results from that toughness. And I think when you look back on his career and you look back at some of the Daytona 500 achievements, the title, the amount of wins that he has, he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think Kevin Harvick not only affected the sport in many ways for 2 decades, 2 different teams, he's going to affect the sport for decades to come in the booth for Fox. And I think he's going to be there for a while. I don't think it's going to be a couple-year thing. So before we wrap, I just wanted to get any other impressions on the weekend. What's your big takeaway from what we've seen at Phoenix and your 3 champions in Rhodes, Custer, and Blaney? I'll start with you, Stephen.
Well, I'll stick to the Cup race and also what could have been for the other final 4 competitors. So I talked to Christopher Bell after he finished last with a brake rotor failure. It was unexpected. That was their first failure of the season. He also said that Phoenix isn't traditionally a track, that's tough on the brakes, like other places, and so that seemed to be come out of the blue. And Toyota doesn't have the best track record at Phoenix with the next gen car, but they were making their way up to the field. He started 13th. He had made his way up to 6th. He was basically running about the same way. He had the same trajectory in the first 100 laps that Ryan Blaney did, who went on to win the whole thing. So would Bell have won had he, made it to the finish? We'll never know. But, for JGR, that's and Bell in his second championship 4 appearance, I think that's definitely what could have been. And I think another thing is, there's always the conversation of what should be the final race. Everyone loves Homestead. Homestead, I thought, put on a great show in October as well. Phoenix may not be completely popular, but I think also, the battle with Ross, with Blaney, with Truex, and the battle with Blaney and Larson at the end of the race. I think Phoenix put on a show much and exceeded everyone's expectations, with this finale. And I think with that, I do think Phoenix, and especially with how much renovations they've done, with how picturesque the scenery is, I think they've, definitely earned their spot, to being the title.
Absolutely. So, Massie, we talked about, the Championship 4 overall a little bit. We didn't mention much about Kyle Larson and William Byron, 2 guys that simply got beat by a faster driver, wouldn't you think, as far as your overall takeaways from the weekend as a whole?
Yeah, I think that Penske Ford, 2 years in a row, that Penske Ford just had a little bit more than some Hendrick cars. Larson, I don't know, he just never really had the speed to contend with Blaney all day. I mean, he got in front of him on a pit stop, but he just couldn't hold him. It was just a matter of time before Blaney passed him. Byron, on the other hand, started out really fast, led nearly the first third of the race, but I think, like Kevin Harvick, as the sun went down, the handling went away on his car, and they didn't keep up with the track. So if they'd done a better job of keeping up with it, maybe he gets out there and it's a little harder to pass, and maybe he can defend Blaney. Maybe he's the champion right now.
Well, let me tell you something. I really appreciate all you fans for keeping up with us over the course of the 2023 Cup season. We're at almost 20,000 YouTube subscribers. I can speak for all of us when we say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for supporting us. Thank you for every positive comment. Thank you for every negative comment. We learn from everything that we see. You could follow me at NASCAR Bowls. You could follow Michael Massie at
M_Massie22.
And you could follow Steven at
Steven_Stumpf. That's Steven with a PH.
And I hope everybody has a wonderful off season. There's still going to be some great content that we'll have the next few months. So don't delete this channel. Don't go away. We're going to have plenty more for you as we prepare for the Daytona 500 in 2024, just 3 months away. So for Mike Massie and Steven Stumpf, I'm Tom Bowles. See you later, 2023.
This is Harrison Burton, driver the number 21. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Also, check out one of these 2 videos beside me. Visit frontstretch.com for more racing content.